Tanja Fajon, Slovenia Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, welcome to Al-Arabiya.
Thank you for inviting.
Thank you. I'd like to ask you about the two-state solution held here last night at the United Nations. Can you talk to us on the importance of this conference for the supporters of Palestinian cause?
I think that everyone gathered in the room really proved that the message is one and very clear. This war in Gaza has to stop. The bombing has to stop. The killing of innocent civilians, the forced displacement of people, the starvation. So the message was really very powerful, very strong, also with the new announcements of the recognition of the state of Palestine. You know that Slovenia was among first last year, together with Spain, Ireland and Norway, to recognize an independent and sovereign state of Palestine. And actually this experience last year and this step that we did last year has proven to be the right one now in this room. And I wish to see the international community really pressure on Israeli government to stop the genocidal acts in Gaza, to stop the illegal occupation of the West Bank. And I do hope that this message that is sent from United Nations, 80 years anniversary, the call for peace, that we will really see peace in the Middle East. Because so far, the international community has fallen on the test of humanity and fallen on the test of bringing peace to the Middle East.
Recognitions are very important. Are you satisfied with the number of recognition? Were you hoping for more? And some people say they are symbolic. They don't really create a Palestinian state. They won't be able even to join the United Nations with the US veto waiting for them in the Security Council.
I very much regret, and it is a wrong thing, that the Palestinian delegation was not being able to attend the session. But I still think that every recognition counts, because it's many countries, a majority of countries of UN, that is today calling for peace and saying what Israel government is doing is wrong, is unacceptable, and it's against the international law and humanitarian law. We call for immediate, just and lasting ceasefire, the release of hostages, the unhindered access of humanitarian aid, and a serious new political architecture, two states on equal footing, living Israelis and Palestinians side by side. I truly believe this is the only solution and guarantee for peace and security of Israelis and Palestinians. I do hope that we will be able to realize and implement also the New York Declaration from July this year. So there are a lot of steps clearly defined how to move ahead, how to make the necessary reforms, how to support the Palestinian authorities, and to make it sure that first and foremost there is peace, that we protect civilians, all the innocent women, children, and the life that has been lost.
What would you say to these countries which are being pressurized by other countries, or one country, not to recognize, like Japan, which was going to recognize and then delayed their recognition? What would you say to European countries as well, in the EU, like Germany, who is not recognizing?
I'll tell you what the policy of Slovenian government is. We are second year in the Security Council, and we really try to pursue policy of peace, dialogue, respect of international law, and we use same standards and principles regardless the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza, Sudan, or all the different armed conflicts around the world. So we are never criticized of having double standards. I wish to see many other countries to follow that mission that is actually the collective mission of United Nations. And I don't want to judge countries and their decisions, but it's our morality. And I think it's about humanity and dignity that we are all being tested. And I think the future will also take accountability on that.
Can you talk to us about the significance of the General Assembly adopting the New York Declaration by a majority of 142 countries for, and only 5 countries against, which is Israel, United States, and 3 small island states in the Pacific. How important was that declaration?
That declaration, New York Declaration, I was myself attending the meeting in New York, is extremely important because it defines concrete steps that has to be implemented. And a lot of countries, as you said, committed to it. So we do have a way forward the day after, but we have to have a permanent ceasefire. And what we see today, every day, is new killings of civilians, destruction, starvation, and people are now not only forced to leave or being displaced, they have no more conditions to live in safety. So the whole world is suffering with them. It becomes a symbol of our really humanity. And I think that more and more people on the streets are protesting, also against their governments and no action of the governments. I think this is something that is really growing stronger.
The United Nations Commission of Inquiry has confirmed that Israel has committed genocide in Gaza. How much weight do you give to this statement, considering that the Commission is an independent body and it's not a competent court that can issue such a judgment on a war?
You know, I've been asked that several times by journalists, also back at home. I think you don't need to be a lawyer to see yourself that these are genocidal acts. And it's not the only independent commission. There are other bodies, very relevant, from Amnesty International, other international organizations or independent lawyers saying the same. Just look at the number of deaths and children that have no school, and officially declared famine in Gaza tells you everything.
Yes. Annexing the West Bank, Israel has been threatening that if more and more countries recognize the Palestinian state, they would annex the West Bank and put an end to this dream of creating an independent Palestinian state. What would your position would be in this if Israel went ahead with its threat? Will the world continue to stand helplessly by the side?
I mean, Slovenia strongly condemned this military action, not only in Gaza, what we are seeing today, but also the plan to illegally continue annexation of West Bank, the violence and settlers' violence, and that can seriously threaten the two-state solution. That is very clear. I wish to say that we are maybe one of the first countries in the European Union that started introducing bilateral measures against the Israeli government. And we called also other countries and other partners in the international community to follow us. We sanctioned 2 Israeli ministers from the radical government. We sanctioned also the arms trade and trade between the countries. This is bilateral measure. But I am glad to see the President of the European Commission recently announced that the European Union is going to do certain measures too. That is an important message.
But it needs consensus for that. Will they get the
question
consensus?
is, and I do hope that we will get at least on some measures qualified majority that we can move ahead. We are gathering like-minded countries also inside the European Union, but also on bilateral level. We are more and more countries acting. I have to say for myself that inaction is not an option.
Slovenia is the first country in the European Union to ban all weapons trade with Israel over the war in Gaza. Do you think the EU countries will follow suit anytime soon? Difficult to say, but I do hope that we will manage to gather this political courage to sanction Israeli settlers. That, I think, it is a realistic option also
the measures that the European Commission recently announced, and also, I understand through college, the measures were adopted, so we will have to gather this political courage among ourselves.
If the situation still worsens further in the West Bank and Gaza, of course, some in Slovenia and Palestinian as well civil societies called on Slovenia's government to set up a safe corridor to accept Palestinians willing to flee the war, or at least take in family members of Palestinians already settled in Slovenia. Is this being considered at all?
I mean, I remember the times months ago when we were discussing the forced displacement of Palestinians is unacceptable. Now we are in a obviously very much different situation where people have no decent conditions to live. So we'll have to consider every option to protect civilians. We are trying to help through humanitarian needs. We had also a group of children in our rehabilitation center from Palestine. So we'll do everything that is in our capacity to help people in need and to help civilians. And we will, of course, coordinate that through the existing mechanisms together with the other countries.
The General Assembly voted by 142 and showed its heavy support for the Palestinian cause. What stops the United Nations General Assembly from acting on the principle of united for peace?
I think that is a question for every single government. You know, if every government in United Nations of all member states would be truly committed to the UN Charter and international law, we would have no wars around the world. But currently we live in a world of many armed conflicts, very polarized, multipolar world where we see more rules of the power than power of the rules. And I'm glad to see that we are the country that, in fact, is on the right side of the history. Not long ago, we hosted the foreign minister of Palestine in my country for 3 days, and she felt among friends, and I wish it stays so.
How about activating the responsibility to protect resolution?
Let's see how the next days and weeks will develop. I think we are in a very important high-level week where the main focus would be, and it is basically, on Gaza. And the main message is it's urgent, it's really time to stop the war in Gaza. And if everyone really commits to that, I do hope that this message will reach the right authorities and right people to stop it.
Tanja Fajon, Slovenia Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, we thank you for your insight and thank you for this interview and wish you the very, very best of luck. And thank you for supporting the Palestinian people. Thank you so much. Thank you.